somebody gave you a sourdough starter, you stuck it in the back of your fridge, and you just completely forgot about it because you're too scared to open it up. If this is you, then this is the video for you. We're going to break your fear of sourdough.
I can't do it. Yes, you can. I know you can.
Nice, and you got some bubbles. My sourdough starter needs to be fed. I probably haven't fed it a little over a week. It's that time. I'm going to show you how to feed your starter. That is all we're going to do. So you are going to take the lid off your sourdough starter and you're going to look at it. Don't overcomplicate it. We're not using a scale today. We're going to go super easy. I need you to get some flour. You do have to have flour. I have all-purpose Trader Joe's flour. It's nothing fancy. Use whatever flour you have. I do use organic, and I have flour here. However much starter you have, look at where it's at. It will rise up, and it should just about double its size when it's ready, and then it will start to go down again. I'll put the rubber band where it's at so you could just see where we're starting. I'm just eyeballing it. I see we have about this much sourdough starter. I am literally going to put about this much flour in here. Okay, so if I put this much flour, and I'm actually going to put a little bit more where my sourdough starter was before I stuck it in the fridge, and you can see it went down. That's okay. I'm going to be left with this much flour and starter. So I need to get a different jar. This is going to be too small to feed all of this. When I am just going to use it for like, I'm going to make one thing, then I'll just take some starter out and then I'll feed that starter specifically. So, but today we're going to feed all of it. So I'm going to get a different jar. Oh my goodness. I'm so not prepared. Spatula. I need a spatula.
1 hour later.
I'm back.
Relax. It's not over yet.
Now that I realized that I needed a larger jar, out of here, and I'm gonna stick it in a bigger jar so it has room to grow like a chia pet. We're gonna feed it and we're gonna watch it grow. You don't have to worry about making anything just yet. You're just gonna get the hang of
feeding your sourdough starter.
Okay, so now you see we have this much starter. So I want to end right about here. And I actually remember I'm going to feed more. That's really the trick. You want to feed at least the same amount at the very minimum, but really you want to feed it more. So I'm actually going to probably feed it just a tiny bit more, just like maybe a scoop or two more than what it is. And that was my issue for a long time. Temperature and like geographical locations, that all can play a role in how your sourdough starter acts. Putting more flour in and putting a little less water than I used to. So actually has really helped me a lot. I have my flour and now I'm going to pour some water in there. You can just use whatever. I have a knife, something like nice and narrow. So I'm putting a little bit of water, mixing it in. I will add a little more water and I'll show you what it looks like once I'm done. I keep my sourdough starter pretty chunky. I do live by the beach in Southern California. Everything goes bad quickly here because of the moisture content in the air. So maybe that plays a role in this. I believe it does. We have a bag of chips out. That's going to go bad in a matter of a few days. So this is an area you can kind of experiment on. It doesn't have to be complicated and you don't have to really know what you're doing. This is pretty indestructible. Just to give you an idea, when I received my sourdough starter, I was not ready for it. A friend gave me some. I was not wanting to even try it at that moment. What I did was I stuck it in the back of my fridge and I just ignored it for 4 months. And then finally, when I got up the courage, I opened up the lid and I saw that it separated. I had all this liquid on the top and it smelled like nail polish remover. And I thought, yeah, I need to chuck this thing. This is bad. But because I like little science experiments sometimes, I was just curious. I did a little searching online and I discovered that all of that extra liquid, that's called booch. You don't need to throw it out. You can literally just mix it back in and feed your starter. I tried that and it did take, it probably took about 3 or 4 feedings to get it to smell not weird. And I know like in the beginning, you don't know what you're looking for in smells, but looking for somewhat of a sour, I mean, you kind of know what sourdough smells like. So you smell it.
Stink, stank, stunk.
But when it's like overboard, you'll know when it smells off. If you discover mold, that's a dead giveaway. You probably, contaminated it somehow. Make sure you use clean utensils and stuff like that. When you're setting it out, if you have gnats or something, flying around, then what I'll do is usually take this part and set it here, but because I'm not prepared, I can't find the larger one, but what I'll do is I'll just set it on top, and then I'll take a napkin over that with a rubber band and just set it there. The reason why I put this on top is because if you just put the napkin, it will eventually stick and you just have this mess. And then I have to change out the dart and it gets all stuck in there and it's like concrete. Anyways, it's not a big deal if that's all you have, but forewarning. Let me show you what my fed sourdough starter looks like. Okay, so you see my fed sourdough starter. It's actually pretty thick, kind of like a thicker pancake batter. This is the thickness I like to keep mine at. Let's say that you have already tried your sourdough starter and you've had a few little issues and you're kind of not knowing what's going on. There are a few things you can do. Number one, use a little less water. That kind of changes the starter, but having a thicker starter is going to be easier to work with as far as getting things to rise and so forth. The other thing you can do, if you want to kind of supercharge your starter, you can add some rye flour. Here's some rye berries. I just bought them on Amazon, organic. You just take some rye flour, grind it in your grinder, and add some in there. You can do like 2 scoops. Mix it in. That will really help your starter get going. Let's say that it's wintertime and you're watching this, or you live in a really cold environment. One thing you can do is use a heating mat. This is what I do to heat it up. Now, you don't want to put it on directly because that will kind of cook it, and I have done that. I've had to help my starter out again from cooking it slightly. You can also, if you don't have a heating mat and you don't want to get one, you can turn on your oven, or even like, let's say you're cooking, have your starter near the stove where it's in a warmer environment. If you have a fireplace, stick it by the fireplace. You want it to be warm, you just don't want to cook it. So you can turn your oven on and then turn it off, heat it up a little bit so it's nice and warm in there, and then just remember to turn it off, because I have done that where I started cooking it, totally forgot about it. And then you can stick your starter in the oven. So I've done that. But the easiest thing for me is spend that $10, get a heating mat. This was like a plant heating mat, and I actually bought it for kombucha. So you just get a kitchen towel, get something, wrap it around so there's a little separation between heat and your starter.
Then you just wrap this bad boy around.
Could get a rubber band, tie it. I usually don't. I just keep wrapping it and then plug it in. Let it sit on your counter for the day, and then check back every now and then. Take it off. That's a little project. I usually don't just pull it out from the top because I want to see where the rubber band is. And if I do that, the rubber band moves. You can also get like a dry erase marker and mark the area where the line first was. I've done that. Sometimes it comes off though. You can get a ribbon. It doesn't really matter what you use. Just mark where you're at so you know. I just want to encourage you that even if you're not ready to even think about a recipe, let's say life is busy, get it out in the morning before work or before the day. Throw some flour in there, throw some water in there. I mean, it's going to take you 3 minutes. And then stick a lid on it. You don't want it to be tight. Okay, or put a napkin over it and put a rubber band around it. Whatever you do, just set it there for the day, forget about it, and then later on in the afternoon and check it out. And if you're home and you can pop in and see it, or let's say you don't have time to do it in the morning, do it when you come home from work, feed it and so forth, and then just watch it, and before you go to bed, check on it and see what it's doing. Just test it out. You trial and error. Let's say you got it to grow halfway and it's bedtime and you're done with this. Throw it in the fridge. It's not a big deal. You can deal with it the next time. You're not going to kill your starter. You're not going to ruin it. It's pretty hard to ruin it. Trust me. I should have ruined it and I didn't. It survived me. So if it can survive me, it can survive you. I just want to encourage you to get the starter out and give it a shot. When you're ready to cross that bridge over recipes, we are going to take baby steps.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Oh boy.
We're going to get you there. We're just going to do a tiny little recipe just to get you used to it. Once you start feeding this and watching it grow like a little chia pet, once you get the hang of that, it'll make more sense to you. And then you'll understand the difference between what's discard and what's active and bubbly. What's the difference? Just all I'm saying is put your fears aside and get your flour and water out. With your water, you don't want to use tap water. You want to use some sort of filtered water. You really don't want chlorine because the chlorine can kill the live yeast. Supposedly it collects wild yeast spores in the air, but I've also read that it's the flour that has the yeast spores on it. So maybe it's a little bit of both, but either way, your starter is going to be unique to your home and your environment and the flour that you use. Don't worry about where you're at. Just start. That's it. Just begin. Just start somewhere and you will get further than where you are. That's my little word of encouragement to you. I hope you've liked this video. I hope it's helpful. And if so, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Baby steps through the office. Baby steps out the door.